I watched him be on the sidelines for the Orange Bowl, where Florida beat Virginia, and then I heard him driving around as he was helping call the Peach Bowl, where LSU destroyed Oklahoma for ESPN Radio. He is ESPN NFL draft analyst and reporter Todd McShay. How are you, Todd?
I'm doing well. I don't know if you were on air or if it was just in commercial, but you were talking about mispronouncing some names.
Yes.
And I just want to let you know, T. Higgins, he's a wide receiver for Clemson. I called him T. Martin about 12 times.
Hey, man, it happens, right?
3 or 4 weeks ago.
I know. And I can't. By the way, it just kills me that I kept
and there's no way I said T. Martin. It was definitely T. Higgins until they had to play it back to me. And I was like, oh, my. Are you kidding me?
I know. And like you swear, like I would never do that. Why would I ever do that? And yet you did. You know, I mean, your colleague, Tess with Decaf Metcalf, and here I am calling Watson Winston and Winston Watson, and then Winston is throwing a guy named Watson, and my head's exploding.
And
at any rate,
no way that you said it, right?
Of course, there was no way I said it until I go to my Twitter feed, and
then they run it back, and you're like, oh.
At least I'm sure your Twitter feed wasn't a total dumpster fire like mine was, Todd. Oh, wait a minute, I'm sure it was.
Everyone is very friendly about
it. What was it like? Now, again, I'm having worked with Mayock for as long as I did, and then Daniel Jeremiah for as long as I have. I know most of the time you are watching top-notch, top-ranked, if not number one overall draft choices, mostly on tape. You saw Burrow in person for ESPN Radio do what he did at the Peach Bowl. What in the hell does it look like with your own 2 eyes, Todd?
It was unbelievable. It really was. I mean, I was there for Vince Young against USC, just kind of taking over the game, and I've been fortunate enough to see a lot of great performances. This one was different, though. This one, it was watching a surgeon go in and just have the best surgery that you could possibly. And I know he got protection, and I know that his receivers, Justin Jefferson for starters, making contested catches, 3 of them for touchdowns. I've never seen a quarterback live more poised, more comfortable, and more just in his own skin and understanding exactly where he needed to go with the ball and what he was reading, and more precise than he was. It was remarkable. So we had him live last year, and I thought he was a pretty good player. I thought he was, maybe a mid-round pick. And then this year it's been completely different, studying all the tape and then watching him live. It was watching the game actually slow down. He made the game slow down for me, which is hard to say.
Wow.
I've watched enough tape where it's pretty slow for me. He made the game slow down for me because of how comfortable he was in the pocket and how informed he was about what he was reading. It really was a special performance watching him against Oklahoma, and I get it. Oklahoma is not a great defense. They've had struggles all year long. But it doesn't – even in 7-on-7, to watch someone that precise and that in control, really impressive.
Well, look, we could sit here and parse anything, especially the Oklahoma defense. But the throws he was making, Todd, he's throwing back shoulder. He's high pointing to the right, high point guys. He's leading the right guys. He's also keeping his head up as he's leaving the pocket. It really was amazing. So that said,
and Rich, the other thing too is he got whacked on I think it was a 2nd down, and let's call it a 2nd and 8. I forget what it was. He got absolutely buried. Pops right up. And then the next throw is from inside the pocket. I'm in the end zone watching him. He's throwing towards me. It's an in-cutting route, about 15 yards, because he took the sack on the play before. So now it's 3rd and 13, 3rd and 15, something along those lines. He's getting ready to get hit again, and he doesn't flinch. He stares it down, and he throws the ball with anticipation to a spot. I think it's going to be an interception from the end zone that I'm looking at. And all of a sudden, the receiver comes darting into the middle on that in-cutting route, and boom, first down. To have the cojones, the guts to hang in the pocket after taking that hit, you don't see a lot of college quarterbacks do that. Usually the eyes go down, they start running around and either make a mistake or just take the sack and punt and move on. He hung in there and threw for a first down, and that's kind of the difference between him and most college quarterbacks that I watch and evaluate.
Todd McShay here on the Rich Eisen Show from the Worldwide Leader. So you know as well as I do whether it's going to be somebody who's hoping he doesn't go number 1 overall, so he drops, or the over parsing, the over hand wringing that usually does happen because the talent evaluation portion of our calendar is way too long. What's going to be what's going to be in the knock? What's going to be the knock we hear around March, April? Is it going to be like
he doesn't have the strongest arm in the world?
Okay. What about the idea of like where did he come from? Why to go from one year to this? Could it be a flash in the pan? We're going to hear that sort of stuff. You too?
If he doesn't have a Joe Brady with him and doesn't have the right coaching, maybe he's going to be the guy that we saw a year ago. But they didn't let him play last year. That was the difference. LSU did what LSU has done for the past 2 decades last year and ran the football and didn't know what they wanted to be offensively. He had just arrived from Ohio State after 3 years and was developing into a leader and trying to figure out how to beat the guy. And you could tell in the first quarter of the first game this year, he was just a different cat. I mean, he came in with confidence. He knew who he wanted to be. And Joe Brady brought out the best in him. And yes, like Clyde Edwards-Helaire was a huge help at the running back position, but he didn't play the other night. The wide receivers grew up a little bit. All those young receivers grew up, and they played better. But it really, to me, was him developing and figuring out who he is and what he wants to be, and being in an offensive system that was more like what he played in high school and more like the one that he had learned for a few years at Ohio State. And then he took kind of a year sabbatical to become the leader and become the guy. And then Joe Brady came in and turned Burrow into Burrow. And it took me a while. It was 4 or 5 games into the year where I finally gave in. But he's the best quarterback that's eligible in this year's class. We'll see what Tua Tagovailoa is going to announce on Monday. I'm hearing both sides, but I think there's a much better chance of him going back to school than I ever would have thought.
Oh, wow.
But regardless, I think Joe Burrow is going to be the number 1 overall pick, and he's going to be the first quarterback taken.
All right, Todd, let's jump into it. I mean, what possible reason would Tua have to go back?
I have no idea. Rich. I really don't.
Right? Because you must be hearing evaluators.
I've said it multiple times. I wouldn't take another snap in college if I was Tua. And I would advise his family in that. I've talked to Nick Saban about it.
You have.
And Nick's not pushing him. Nick is as good as anyone in the game at giving the players the information and letting them decide. And he wants to make sure that they get the right information. I will, as much as any coach in the profession. And he told me he talked to 20 teams, and we were talking about all of their different players. There's 15 players from that team who could wind up being drafted or wind up leaving early, and he wanted to make sure that every single player had the right information. Tua, it just comes down to what he thinks medically, what his doctors are telling him medically, and what he's getting in terms of an evaluation back. And that is the part that none of us know right now. It's one of the biggest unknowns I can think of in terms of a potential top 5 pick. If you're just evaluating him from a talent standpoint, we just don't know. Well, nobody knows except his inner circle, and we'll find out a lot of things, I think, on Monday.
Well, I mean, in the way it's going to work, Todd McShay here on the Rich Eisen Show, as you and I know, and let's inform the listeners and viewers of this conversation. His medical will be maybe the most viewed item at the combine this year of even of anybody's 40-yard dash or weight and reps or name a drill.
It will be if he decides to declare for this draft. Right. It will be the most scrutinized aspect of any part of the entire pre-draft process. There's no question about it. And then they'll do the medical recheck in the first week in April usually, and then every single team that has a chance to draft him or has any interest in drafting him will send their medical team out. That's right. And then they'll bring him into their facility and go through more medical checks. It will be a very, very long process for Tua Tagovailoa if he decides to declare for this draft, and even if it's a year from now. But it will be as scrutinized as I can remember any individual in the whole process.
Because the tape doesn't lie, and then when he goes on the grease board and when he sits face-to-face with an owner or a coach, he's just going to absolutely knock it out of the park, meaning they're all going to be like
one of the best. guys you've ever been around.
Right, which means they're all going to...
There's nothing to dislike about him. His competitiveness, even though he's been injured, he's tough. His teammates love him. His coaches love him. There's not a single person who's ever said one negative thing about Tua that I've ever talked to, and I've been digging. I've been trying. He's amazing. And, so it's just the medical.
I know. They're all going to go to the doctors and basically say, tell me something good. Please tell me something good.
Begging them, please.
I mean, that's the evaluation for him. So he's just got to figure, do I want to go into the NFL that way if this weekend he and his doctors are looking at whatever medical report they're getting, and they're like, you can do this. I mean, that's essentially the choice he has here.
Here's the other thing that I've been told from a very good source.
Okay.
He can't do anything until April. There's nothing he can do physically until April. So the Monday comes and passes, and he has no idea. He just doesn't know. The doctors don't definitively know because it's just it's a rehab process, and they're hopeful, and everyone's saying the right thing. But that would be the only reason to go back, is because you just don't know. Because in April, right before the draft, is when they think he'll be able to start, walking and start to do some physical activity. And to not know that information, and all of a sudden, dang, the 23rd's here. That's a lot to wait for. So, but then do you go back to school and play again and risk injury? It's a really difficult decision for him. It really is. I don't know what I would do if I was his parents trying to advise him. I would say don't play another college snap, but I'm also not saying the best idea is to be in this draft and then 2 weeks before the draft, the doctors come out and say, well, it's going to be another 8 months before you're able to start doing physical activity or playing football again. And that's not going to help. So it's brutal.
Todd McShay here on the Rich Eisen Show. Who else has helped himself in the bowl season? Todd?
In the bowl season, I would say Jeff Okudah, the cornerback for Ohio State.
He had a heck of a game.
Played really well. Everyone for LSU played really well. Grant Delpit had a great game. Yeah. The safety, he's going to be a top 10 pick.
Did nobody tell Jerry Jeudy how highly he was going to be drafted and tell him to sit out the Verbo Citrus Bowl? Did nobody get in his ear, Todd? Come on.
I mean, I love it. Yeah. Again, if I'm his dad, I'm saying don't play. But I love the fact that he played, and every evaluator loves the fact that he played. He had nothing that he had to show or play for. He's a top 10 pick. He and C.D. Lamb are two receivers that really had not very. At least C.D. was playing in a semifinal game for Oklahoma,
right?
So it was understandable, and everyone expected him to play. Jerry Jeudy going out there and playing against Michigan, I thought it was awesome. I love that.
Could this be an A.J. Green, Julio Jones situation with the two of them?
Yeah, absolutely. I think those are the top two guys.
Right.
T. Higgins, who I call T. Martin, is going to be the third coming out of Clemson. But but I think Judy's, in 20 years of evaluating wide receivers, evaluating players, he's the best route runner I've ever evaluated.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a draft class, man.
He's not the biggest. He's not the fastest. He's going to run a 4.5, and it's all good. He's just like Marvin Harris. He just knows how to get open. He knows how to get open. And CD is great after the catch and is tough and physical and does all the little things. But those two guys are, in my opinion, both worth top 10 picks.
All right, last couple of questions for you, Todd. You hearing anything about Lincoln Riley? Maybe going to the Cowboys? Anything at all on that front?
I haven't heard anything.
Okay.
I haven't heard anything. I've heard some other names. I mean, I've heard his name. I didn't talk to him about it. He was asked the question, and he couldn't have run away from the question fast enough, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
He did not specifically say that he was not taking the job or would not be interested in the job. He just ran away from the question.
All right, and then last thing for you. I give you three. I put you at a desk. I give you a Sharpie. I give you a pencil, and then a pen in an old jar or container of whiteout, which kids might not know, but I give you those three items. What do you use to write down Joe Burrow and Chase Young 1, 2 in the draft? What do you do?
Sharpie.
Huh.
Sharpie.
Now you didn't even stutter. That's going to happen.
No.
Burrow Bengals, Chase Young Redskins. That's the way it's going to go.
Yep, done.
Right.
And you can play this back just like someone's going to play back the T. Martin.
My Winston Watson stuff? Sure. Got it.
Yeah.
Todd, I loved everything you did. Loved hearing you on the call. My son and I watched the Orange Bowl. It was great. Good times. Happy New Year to you.
I appreciate it, man.
Of course. Happy New Year to you and yours. Let's chat often, please.
Look forward to it.
Right back at
Take
you.
care, buddy.
You got it. Right back at you. That's Todd McShay at McShay13.
For more of The Rich Eisen Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV for free on BR Live or download the Rich Eisen Show app.